it's going to get you part of the way. It can detect cancer earlier, but it hasn't cured it yet, right?
Right.
Maybe it will,
Maybe it
but
will.
not every type. And then there'll be a new type. And with
Right.
risk around properties, weather's always changing, things happen.
Mhm.
So I don't think you can completely eliminate risk,
Right.
but it sure could help you.
Welcome to Keys to Real Estate, where we explore the trends and changes shaping the future of our industry. The trend we're zooming in on today is the use of AI in our everyday lives. And no, this isn't just another AI presentation, so please don't stop the player. We don't talk about using it to hash out a real quick marketing plan or designing a down and dirty social media campaign. No, instead, we focus on how to think about living alongside an AI assistant and what it might mean for your work days, office life in general, or even your off hours. And we wanted this foundational conversation to begin to help you think about AI a bit differently. So we're joined today by Brian Carter, who's the CEO of Optimedia, and he's an internationally recognized futurist and a best-selling author. Now, Brian is known for his engaging, research-driven presentations that blend humor with deep insights into AI, business, and innovation in general. And he is a featured speaker at our upcoming National Settlement Services Summit, NS3, where he'll share meaningful strategies and tactics on leveraging AI in the unique world of the conveyance of real estate. Now, from the stage, he'll talk about how AI is transforming real estate, and he'll be offering practical advice on integrating AI tools to enhance efficiency and client engagement. But for today, let's refresh our thoughts and approach to our incorporation of AI generally. And that'll get us ready for his in-depth presentation at the summit. So please enjoy my conversation with the thoughtful and engaging Mr. Brian Carter. The presenting sponsor for this season of Keys to Real Estate is Closing Lock. Working in title, do you ever feel like you've got a target on your back? Every year, $2 trillion moves in and out of escrow accounts in the United States. Fraudsters are watching and waiting for one wrong click, one unsecured email, just one oversight. And then just like that, your client's life savings are gone. That's where Closing Lock comes in. Closing Lock provides title companies a secure, all-in-one platform to prevent fraud, protect funds, and streamline closings. Over 1 million home sales have closed safely without incident in Closing Lock. The fraudsters only have to be right once. Title companies have to be right every time. Closing Lock has your back. Visit closinglock.com today to learn more. Brian Carter, welcome to Keys to Real Estate. We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks, Mary. Good to be here.
Well, what people are about to learn, they don't yet know, but they're about to learn, is you are our featured speaker at this year's National Settlement Summit Services, and that's June 16 through 18 in Pittsburgh. And you're going to be giving a talk on AI, but I don't think yours is going to be your average generic talk on AI.
No, it's not. I'm going to be on a unicycle. I juggle fire. I hope you have insurance for that.
We're going to have to up our coverage. Well, there's so much going on in the space right now, and we really wanted someone that takes a different approach to it as you do, because almost everybody listening or watching has been in at least one sort of AI session. And what they hear is, hey, it's inevitable, it's coming, so don't fight it. And they hear things like, you'll be able to repurpose your talent or at least make your margins better. And maybe if they were in a super sexy one, they heard, hey, have ChatGPT put together a marketing plan for you in 30 seconds or less, or some social media posts, like let it formulate those and then just let them rip out on a regular cycle. So again, yours is very different than all of that even. So if we could, I'd like to give folks a little preview of the types of things they're going to hear from you in June.
Sure. Well, overall, I talk about both human beings and AI, right? So there's both of us in the situation, right? There are things that AI is going to be able to do better and faster than human beings can do. There are things that it can't do. I mean, a lot of the stuff you just mentioned is about like, hey, here's the promise of AI, which is great. Right. But like if you look at the Gartner hype cycle, the adoption cycle, we went through this period of hype, an explosion of companies with AI tools and all that stuff in 2024. And I realized we were starting to get to the point where we're hitting the trough of disillusionment. Whereas like, because once you start to use it, then you're like, oh my gosh, or like it screwed this thing up or whatever. So there are some things about how to use it well. We have to check AI constantly.
She
Because
does hallucinate, doesn't she?
it can hallucinate, which is fun. I guess they're having fun,
Yeah, sure. Why not?
hallucinating. And it's not just that too. It's like if you give it too narrow a frame of reference, it may make the wrong assumptions. All that typical stuff when somebody, I always say that AI is like some kid in the basement that read 30,000 encyclopedias, but's never been on a date. So like it knows a lot of stuff, but it doesn't know real world stuff. It doesn't always have the context that a human being has. And I mean, really, like our brains are like incredibly advanced, like biological computers
Yeah.
that we don't even really still understand how they work,
How they
right?
work, let
Right.
alone how something that isn't quite that works.
And it's pretty amazing that by trying to reproduce what we understand about the brain with AI, it occasionally, like now I'm so used to talking to ChatGPT or using Perplexity or something to research, just occasionally will be like, it's crazy now. I just accept that this thing can understand me and reply. But yeah, I mean, when you get into the where the meets the road and we're going to use
Mm-hmm.
AI practically, it is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference too. Like it's typical somebody go out and tell you about ChatGPT, which you've already heard of,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then you've got, I did an AI for dentists keynote where we talked about the machine learning. You know, machine learning is a slightly different part of AI where they take a ton of data and they're able to like detect breast cancer sooner than a doctor can. Or a dentist is in there, they can't even see visually. There's something weird on the inside of the mouth, but the computer can see that it's cancer, right? Like 3 months before a dentist could.
Isn't that
So
crazy?
it can save lives, and it can do that kind of thing with all of your company's data, larger scale projects. But for most people, they're going to find something in their niche, like a real estate related AI tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of applications. I really feel like even with the stuff that's out right now, it's more limited by your imagination than anything, right?
And that's exciting.
Yeah. Well, you can use it to plan, like I use it to research and plan a vacation, right?
Mm.
Or to understand the title industry better, right? And create graphics for slides, all kinds of cool stuff that it can do. So there's that. We're going to talk about what AI can do, what it can't do, and what human beings need to do. No, it's not going to come over and take over the world like the Terminator or something yet. Who knows? Maybe it will in 100 years.
Caveat. Yeah.
But like the funny thing is like it probably would get confused and not be able to do it right at this point.
Right.
But we do need to think ahead about like what are the things that we do that are really simple to automate that AI could do. If you've got 30, 40 more years in your job, you might want to think ahead about the stuff that it can't do, like human being things that it can't do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that should evolve over time, I would expect. What, to your point, what it can't do
Yeah.
today, it will be able to do next week. And it sounds like if you're a business owner or in upper management, it sounds like you're saying that the challenge is less critical to have you be an amazing AI pilot or driver or whatever you call it, interactor. Although I would encourage everybody to jump in, the water's warm. It is a
Mhm.
fascinating. I've been in relationship with Chat GPT for about 18 months, like right when it first became publicly available. I was on it that weekend,
Nice.
and I have a lot of evolution to do, but I will say jump on in the water's fine. It does feel like an assistant to me at this
Yeah.
point, which is
Yeah.
very valuable. But I think one of the things that you're going to be focusing on is, it sounds like you believe it is as much a change management exercise from an ownership and management standpoint than
Yeah.
than it might be for them actually using it and driving it and doing chats.
I do. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can, because certainly though a leader can use it as a sounding board, right? Or whatever. Well, I like to joke that nobody wants to talk to me as much as ChatGPT will talk to me. So
And
that,
every idea you have is great.
that's right.
And
Wow,
also
that's
your hair's
amazing.
fantastic. And have
My,
you lost weight? Like
well,
chat is,
my hair is always amazing, but
to be fair.
anyway, yeah, it's true. Like you need to know as a leader where it's going to be integrated and all that kind of stuff. It kind of depends on where you're coming from, right? I think we always have to consider our own biases before
Mm.
figure out what we're not able to do and find other people to help us do it. So in a way, whether you're quick enough to get on AI to be competitive with other people, well, it is slightly different than other things. Like, so the internet came along, right? Or even as far back as like, no one's going to want a computer in their house. So all that stuff as we've evolved, the thing is that it's gotten faster. So that's the difference, is that AI is the latest, greatest thing that you want to integrate in your business, but people are doing it faster. It's easier than it used to be. And that means if you're slow, you're going to lose more, right? So there's an adoption curve I'll go over in the keynote, but essentially you don't want to be any later than when most people realize it's useful and get on it, right? And there's always obstacles to getting stuff done. It's like, you can agree, yes, we should do AI. Did you put it on your calendar? Do you have an action plan for doing it? Who's researching the stuff that you're going to integrate in your business and all that kind of stuff. So in some ways, it may be no different than the internet. Like, you find your nephew who knows how to use the computer and does your website for you. It's like 1995 or something. So you can always, if you don't want to do it, but really what I'm getting at without saying it, it's age, right? Generations. The older you are, the less likely you have made a habit of integrating new technology in your daily life, right? Yeah. So I think I grew up kind of on the cusp of like a young Gen X, older millennial. And my attitude was always, let me find a new thing, like you did with ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. So I'm always trying to find the latest, newest thing and help people integrate it. That's why I'm even on this topic. But yeah, I think you have to take some time to think about what's your plan? What's your plan to integrate AI? Where are you going to be at by the end of 2025?
Yeah. Well, and in this industry, as well as in the one I work in directly, which is the press, there's a lot of conversations right now about if they've purchased something proprietary in the AI column, then train it on your data and it's not going outside your house, and that's great. But these publicly available ones, when you're dealing with people's confidential information and all that, what you can run through one of those publicly available GPTs is an interesting question. I do see in our business, it tends to be more kind of general stuff with regard to using the publicly available ones. And then that for your more proprietary and that NPI customer data, you need to have that pretty sequestered and know it's not leaving your house, because you'll get to know us a little bit more as we get through June together. But a lot of times the lenders don't even consider much of the data the title agents hold as their own. The lender considers it their data. And so some of the guidelines around that can be a little tricky to understand. And to your point about having a plan and thinking through what you can do now and what you cannot, and what would be inappropriate. And probably too, figuring out some sort of set of controls on your employees, because for the publicly available ones, I'm sure you want them using it, especially if they're in marketing or sales, or creating content for web or other distribution, flyers, presentations. But then you've got that other set of data that you have to be so careful with. And so having some regulation, some policies and some governors on not allowing your employees to use some of that more sensitive data is another challenge that people have to really think through.
Yeah. And that's definitely, I've done a lot of talks for medical groups as well. Right. So HIPAA is a thing.
Very similar. Yep.
Yeah. And so it may be similar in the sense that you would never, email around through Gmail somebody's personal financial data, right? But when it comes to dealing like with this kind of thing, you're probably only dealing with all of that on a big, like, multi-person basis. And so you can anonymize, you can give people names like a code and anonymize the data. Right. That's one thing. But I would think bigger companies might be doing that, because these are really big custom projects where you need to hire a programmer, and keeping everything off the internet is in some kind of walled garden. That's a big custom project. I kind of think that's what most people won't be dealing with, that kind of thing, although it is possible to do it.
Yeah, you just have to be aware of the restrictions and what's available and what you should and shouldn't be using.
Yep.
One of the things that I think people in our industry get confused about, I think lenders also get confused about this, because they're using some algorithmic decision making already for like underwriting decisions and things like that.
Yeah.
And when we work with regulators, one of the key questions regulators have, because they're in charge of compliance of these industries, right? And their question is, how do I audit an algorithm? How do I audit an AI decision engine? If I need to deconstruct some of the elements that went into this black box, how do I do it? So that's a big challenge that industry is trying to deal with right now too. And I assume some others are.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the difference between an algorithm and AI is that algorithm is like a recipe. Like if you're cooking, you just follow the recipe step by step. But once you're a chef, you can do fusion. You're gonna be like, I'm gonna throw a little bit of Asian, a little Mexican in here, and some fried chicken or whatever. That's a chef, right? And they're doing stuff. It's an art. And you can never ask the chef, well, why did you choose to put that amount of parsley on? Well, I don't know.
It was the right amount.
Right?
Yeah, it just felt right. Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that like with all of these with ChatGPT, those types of AI, they basically gave it all this information and then it came up with this understanding. And then they went, okay, well, now let's go back and try and figure out how it did that, which means they didn't really have to know how it works or be able to audit it for it to. It's like it's called an emergent property, right? It's that somehow it's just made all these mathematical correlations, which is insane because like between every word and every sentence, it's calculating a relatability score. Like it kind of knows which things are opposites, right?
Yeah.
But and the people will say it's like that predictive, like when you're typing on the iPhone and predictive next. That's a very, very basic version of what it's done because it's done that with like, well, I mean, it's read more books than any person could read in 10,000 years, basically.
Right.
So just imagine being able to like, we can't hold that much stuff in our heads.
Right.
And I will tell you that my belief is that the stuff that we do by gut and the things that we call feelings, to some degree, that is our intuitive map of the world, right? We've created this map that we can't with our frontal cortex, we can't think through it or explain it, but you have a gut feeling.
And it's kind of our operating system. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of
Okay.
it. And it's not, I mean, we obviously want to combine that with science and we obviously can be wrong sometimes. Sometimes you just had some bad Mexican food and that's why you feel that way,
Right.
right? That's a gut feeling too.
Yeah.
So really just these entities like ChatGPT are just these gigantic association maps of the world. And that's somehow how it is able to respond to you almost as if it's another person. So you can go back and look at the step-by-step recipe and algorithm used. Here's what I do. I always if I have a question, I'll take it to ChatGPT and to Claude and Perplexity, and I'll see how similar the answers are.
Okay.
And I'll check, these days they're giving you references so you can go out and see.
Yes, thankfully.
Because I would say even like 3 months ago, I would check on some of them and it wasn't in the document they were referring to, right?
Right.
Checking sources. But you got to check it. You've got to fact check it.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes a voice, like it's a research tool or it can give you ideas. But if it gives me a graphic for a presentation and it's stupid, I'm like, okay, well, I judge that is stupid. I'm not going to use it. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you don't set it and forget it and take your hands off the wheel and go to Japan for 6 months. Like it does require care feeding, monitoring, double checking.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have some great providers in this space who have tailored solutions for the real estate world. So let's say I've engaged with them, we've done our training, we're through phase 1 of a 4-step implementation plan. How often should I go back and validate that what I wanted it to do, it's still doing, or it hasn't leapt into some other connection that I don't want it to make?
Right. You can use programmers as a model or even just managing people, right? You're going to have check-ins, you're going to have milestones, right? And of course, even if conditions change, you might have to re-examine some of your initial assumptions about the whole project, right?
True.
So it depends on how stable the environment you're working in is, maybe legislations could change or something, for example.
They very well could and should.
Yeah. I want to check its work. And it's kind of crazy in the programming world now because there's such a debate about how much to use these assistive programming AIs, like whether it's Claude or other ChatGPT or others, because the senior programmers are like, well, you're understanding really how to write the programming language and that's bad, which could be true.
Could be true.
They put all this code out and then they don't know how to debug it unless they ask the AI to debug it for them.
Right.
And that's probably the riskiest way to do things. I've done that for stock market stuff. There's a thing called Trading View where you can view charts of stocks and there's a scripting language for it. And I've used Claude to create visualizations and things. And it'll get a debugging, like it'll get an error and then I'll set that error and it rewrites the code and there's another error and it rewrites the code and then it works.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to program. So isn't that an interesting thing? It's not perfect, but it's super empowering, right?
Yeah. Well, and that sounds to me like you're describing a situation where it made you less intimidated about a subject than you maybe by rights should be. That's a weird way to say it, because I think that's the opposite instinct that a lot of people have. I think a lot of people want to lean back and wait until they fully understand it and understand all the implications and feel comfortable. They're just kind of walking around the screen looking at it and going, not yet.
Yep.
But I like your jump in with both feet kind of
Sure.
mindset, and you're learning along with it.
Yeah.
You're learning
I mean,
how to
another
use
example,
it.
like we had a water problem in our yard. We live right on a marsh and we are having standing water and we had a guy come out and do this and that and they put in new drains. It still wasn't enough. So I used the AI to learn all about these types of problems and to figure out that I needed to create a French drain and how to create one and what materials I needed and blah blah blah. And I did the French drain.
Oh,
So it's really, I said earlier, like I think you're mostly only held back by your imagination, what you can use it for. We're also held back by just the laziness that happens where you're like, someone else should deal with that, or I'll,
yeah.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
that whole thing. But if you push your, that's right. If you go to yourself, we're like, why couldn't I figure this out myself, right?
Yeah. What if
Yeah,
I
and
could?
yeah,
And so from people in our demographic and older, a question I get a lot about it is often, well, what's the big deal? I have Google. What's the difference?
I'm not sure how to respond to that because that shows such a lack of understanding. So Google's a search engine
And
that
they're
has
used
been.
to asking it questions and getting some
Well, if they're
responses.
doing that now, then they are using AI because AI
Okay,
is part
there
of
you
Google
go.
now,
There
right?
you go.
So, but if you were asking it questions like 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't really answering your question, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
smart. It's just taking the words that you typed in and trying to find the web documents that have that as
Exactly.
ranked
Yeah.
highest,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So that's completely different. Now, yeah, that question is dicey because yeah, you can go ask Google stuff and the Gemini, Google's AI will reply to you. But the difference, it's like saying, "Hey, I have a card catalog. Why do I need to talk to an expert?" Those are two completely
Two
different things.
different things.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know you think about the kind of the psychological and the human aspects of this.
Mm.
So, as this continues to evolve, and again, people, they might, if they're listening and they're as advanced as you are on this, maybe not such a big deal. But for even people like me who are pretty comfortable and it's baked into not every day, but a majority of days, how do we need to be thinking about? I'm going to use a funny word, my relationship with ChatGPT.
So in what context do you mean?
Well, you can feel it evolve, not the relationship. You can feel its, I don't want to say it's intelligence, and I certainly don't want to say it's persona,
Hmm.
but it's not that either. When you get using it that much, like I find myself
Okay. Yeah.
ascribing some human characteristics to it. It's like, I wonder what Chat would think about that. Or I want to consult with Chat on that before I open my mouth about it in a meeting because it might be really stupid. It might just sound good inside my own head, stuff like that.
Right.
So you can feel it evolve in its abilities and the way it presents information. And for now, sometimes you get the side by side. Is this better or this better? So they're
Mm-hmm.
A/B testing with you too. It's it's a nice loop. That's cool. But I just wonder, my relationships with my human co-employees and colleagues evolve. Is my relationship with AI going to evolve like it does with a human, or is it different, Karen? Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't even know
mean,
how to think about it.
yeah, in certain ways for sure. I mean, if you're really into that relationship, you probably need to get out more.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
for one thing, I think you recognize pretty quickly that it's a yes man, for one
Oh,
thing.
yes.
So if you want to make sure it's not just agreeing with every idea you have to ask it questions where it could answer either way. Isn't this a great idea of mine? Yeah, that's great, blah, blah, blah. It's sort of like a really sophisticated passive aggressive person who might throw in the what would normally be like, no, that's a bad idea. It'll be like one or two lines in there where it's like, you might want to consider.
Right.
But
Possibly.
so there's that. I think that ChatGPT and the others have evolved and it's very different now. They started to integrate more of a thinking process that used to be called something else, but it's a chain of GPTs basically, right? So there's like one that's saying, here's my project. And then it's doing this with another one, this with another one, this one, and pulling it all together and then saying, oh, maybe I need to do more research. That is light years from where we were a year ago. So it will evolve. And also they're adding more and more memory. So the other day I was typing something in and I'm used to having in a different chat, it doesn't know anything about me, especially like on Claude, right? But I'm on ChatGPT and I asked it a question and it's like, and this is perfect for your way of doing the creative blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this morning I woke up and I was like, where did that come from? Oh, they've been adding the memory thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, its ability to relate to you will evolve quite a bit. It'll be weird, but I kind of look forward to the point where it's like, well, don't you remember a year ago when you just said you wanted to do this and then you ended up doing that? And it's like, and then you basically got a spouse, basically.
Yeah. Mute.
That's a spouse you could turn off. And then there's all those concerns about the same way the senior programmers say you shouldn't just use ChatGPT without learning to program. There are all these concerns that if younger generations are already not as good at face to face because they've been looking at their phone and blah, blah, blah their whole lives, are people going to get even worse at relating to human beings? And will people expect human beings to act the way that ChatGPT works?
Can we talk about that a little bit? Can we dive
Sure.
down in can I go down that rabbit hole with you?
Yeah, let's go.
Because we've already lost so many of our social skills. You can see it when you're out in the world. I do leave the house sometimes, Brian, and you see it, and I think kids are increasingly not learning that. And then the biggest thing that I've noticed is because interacting with all the tech is so smooth and frictionless when it works. Don't get me started about when it doesn't, because your life's shut down and that's a nightmare. But it's so frictionless and smooth that by the time people get out in the real world and somebody isn't a chat GPT and doesn't think everything that came out of your brain was brilliant and wonderful, or it takes steps to do something, or something has a different opinion, people just boop and lose it. And I'm sure you have a background in thinking about things like that. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, and it's the same. I think that obviously also brings up social media because it has been so divisive for us. You're in an echo chamber, unfortunately, and we already have confirmation bias, which is that sort of blinders we have on, that we see everything we see in the world. Now, I used to be in medicine, and what I found really interesting was this study this one time that doctors only question research, the methodology of the research, when the conclusions differ with their opinion. So,
fascinating.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this research says blah, 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 I already believe. Yeah. You don't look at it to be sure that it's right. You don't question the methodology. Yeah. So that confirmation bias, even in doctors who are supposed to be scientists, it's scary. And we do that stuff all the time. We only see in the world the stuff that fits our worldview. Right. And so everything is confirming our worldview to us all the time. And I think there's a stability in that, and there's an ego strength that's good. And we need that to get through the world and everything. But when that stuff gets accentuated and we become unable to deal with disagreements, right? Like if you honestly, like for me, I was in a liberal arts college, interdisciplinary studies. 75% of our classes were group discussions, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have that, where in your life are people modeling to you how to civilly have a disagreement or a debate that's productive, that's not just yelling at each other or avoiding people who are different? That, to me, that is already happening.
I agree.
And it's made things difficult.
Even just managing a workplace with all those people in it. And it doesn't matter if they're in person, remote, some hybrid, like we're forgetting. I'm not going to say losing, because that sounds like there's an element of finality, and I don't think that's the case. But I think we're going, just like when we all became hybrid and remote during the pandemic and all that, we learned that we had to over communicate to get over the distance battle. And I feel like we're going to have to learn to really I don't even know what you'd call that. We're going to have to do some calisthenics about hitting friction in life.
Yeah, there's something I actually want to look up now to make sure I have them all right. But the Big 5 personality traits, have you heard of that?
No.
It's really useful in this context. They're openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So they're not all necessarily good all the time. But if you're not capable of being open, or you're not capable of being agreeable, or you're not capable of extroversion, which personally, I was very shy. I've grown a lot to try to overcome my introversion, right? That can also be a skill to become extroverted. Conscientiousness, that's the whole thing. Like, we are going to make sure that the methodology is good, even on the stuff that we agree with, right? Those are all traits that need to be developed, and they're not necessarily, I mean, look back at history, tribes, countries, wars, right?
Yeah.
This has been an issue for a long time. And I think we actually have been on a very positive side of it the last couple hundred years compared to history. So,
but there was a civics element involved in that. Granted, mobility, cars and all that had a lot to do with it. We started intentionally going places to gather together, and that was usually good. Most of the time it was good. Civics were a bigger part of our life, and so, not to get political with anybody, but we would go to a town hall and say our piece, not scream our piece, typically, and as again, I think people just are getting so much used to a frictionless online life that, and then we're not going out as much. I mean, you can read an article about that in a major newspaper or magazine every day about how we're not going places anymore. And it just seems like we're going to have to really, especially our young males, it sounds like, have to really be coaxed out of the house.
Yeah. That's interesting. Oh, well, yeah, I do think that's a big problem. I know I kind of heard secondhand from a whole bunch of school teachers when the big question was what had been the effect of participation trophies. And that was that the women were fine, but the guys were extremely demotivated.
Really?
And got depressed. Like, so there's a competitive, and of course, I'm not going to say
right.
biological stuff is one like thing.
We'll just leave
but
that.
but there's something in most guys that wants to be competitive, right? And wants to deal with conflict and wants to know when they suck, right? Like, but I don't know if we're maybe damaging that with the kids as they grow up. And to your point too, like if all their experiences are fake AI friends or like gaming experiences, then I don't know if they develop that. Like if you weren't on a sports team or you weren't on a debate team,
where are you going to get it? Where are you going to learn it?
Where do you learn it?
Where do you pick it up? Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and I can accidentally sound anti-technology, and I'm not. I'm the furthest thing. I'm all about it. This is why I'm so excited for your talk. When you are going to talk more specifics about housing in the industry and practical considerations like that, but it's conversations like this understanding some of the psychological things and some of the, okay, how do we bring our humanity alongside this and work with it?
Right.
And it's those sorts of things. I think conversations, if we have those with business leaders and they start to understand how to think about some of these things, that can get them to how to adopt. And then you can get down to your very granular, specific project goals. But if you don't have this context in knowing how to think about it, you will hesitate.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, when it comes down to being human, having heart, caring about people, understanding the larger context of society and all that stuff. In some ways, sometimes another emergent property of ChatGPT is that it actually includes those things in its responses.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some interesting study. I think they've done this several times now, where they look at different AI chat bots and ask it a series of questions to figure out where it is on the political spectrum, right?
Yeah.
What its beliefs are, and it may or may not be conservative or liberal, right? So that's yet again another reason why you have to tell it exactly what you want and who you are and what you're looking for to get the right response. But it's interesting. Like I just would hope that we don't in the future find that we have less heart than the AI does.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is it's just such a fascinating time to be engaging on this subject. It is changing so quickly, and I'm with you. I think for the better, for the good, for all of us.
Oh, sure.
But our jobs are going to look very different. They are already starting to.
So, I mean, already technology has done that in the past, where certain jobs were eliminated. There aren't any expert typers anymore,
right.
Typists, right?
Well, and people needed typists then because not everybody learned how to type. Now everybody knows how to type. So there's a specialty gone.
Right. Yeah. So,
that's okay.
Yeah.
Because everybody types now.
It's so weird, though, because I saw something the other day that said one of the two professions most likely to be hurt by AI is lawyers. And I was like, no, because there are stories of like lawyers using AI for case prep and major mistakes happening.
The citations were wrong. I mean, they didn't exist. It's like they were made up. I think they cured some of that, but it's astonishing.
Yeah. And then one guy was like, what do I tell my my interns or whatever they call their paralegals, whatever, to do? I was like, you got to have them prepare this stuff and learn to do it right in the first place so it can check the AI.
Well, and it's similar to our industry a little bit because there is one school of thought that essentially AI could do most of this already, and there's some blockchain thrown in there sometimes and sometimes not. But the impetus is if you just do all this research and work and curative work up front, then you don't need to issue an insurance policy because there won't be any risk for the home buyer. And so you just, once the closing's done, okay, move on. And there's no residual warranties, assurances, insurance around the ownership of the property. And we're like, well, maybe. And there's certainly a lane for boosted, if you will, because it's very labor intensive, a lot of research, and then a lot of human deduction power has to go to that specific thing. It's not like when you're looking at one piece of property, you can't go, oh, well, that's just like the 15,000 others. They're all unique. Sure. So there's a real line of, there's some real debates that are hot topics in our industry right now.
Yeah, I think with everything, with all this stuff, it's like, it's going to get you part of the way, right, but it's not going to cure anything. I mean, right, like it can detect cancer earlier, but it hasn't cured it yet, right? Maybe it will.
Maybe it will.
Not every type. And then there'll be a new type. And with risk around properties, like weather's always changing, you know, things happen. So I don't think you can completely eliminate risk.
Right.
But yeah, it sure could help you. Maybe it'll create more efficiency and you'll be more certain, and you know, but you're still always making guesses based on your mental model, which is all that AI is a mental model with the data that it has. We never ever will have complete perfect data about the future. We're never going to be able to predict the future.
Right.
So
yeah. Not 100% anyway. Yeah. There's too many variables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I this is obviously the discussion topic of our time. And I love that you're going to come and help our attendees think about how to think about it really practically for their operations, the things they need to consider, how it's going to change, you know, their employment and staffing and and their relationship with AI. Again, I feel so strange using that phrase, but it really can feel like a relationship. Might be a bad relationship. I don't know. I'm kidding.
It's not as bad as some of the human ones, I'll tell you that.
Not as bad. That's right. And again, mute. You can turn it off.
You can turn it off.
I'm kidding. I kid, but I know that you're going to bring a lot of value to our attendees, and I know that they're going to walk away with some real, I think, two buckets. One, some philosophy and how to think about all this, and then a few action items to really check and make sure when they go back home that they're on track with what they want. And here's the other thing, and I came out of the technology world too. If you're a business owner, you cannot be subject to what Carl in IT says you should be doing with or about AI. Carl in IT has a perspective, but he's not the business owner perspective. He's not thinking about your business holistically. So one of the reasons I'm so encouraged about your presentation is you're going to help business owners have some confidence in having these conversations and making these discussions and not being hostage to, frankly, Carl in IT.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, yeah, you can always get another opinion or more research and see if Carl's right or wrong. So yeah, it's a great tool to have. And let's not forget, we haven't done any of it here, but I have a stand-up comedy background, so it's going to be funny.
Great.
And we're going to have a fireside chat after mine with another expert who's deeper into the real estate industry.
Yes. Our friends at Ardan are very dialed into this. And so I look forward to that part two after your presentation as well. It's going to be fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks for helping us getting all this figured out. And we look forward to everybody meeting you in June.
See you there.
Thank you, Brian. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I can't wait to hear you in more detail and your insights as to what AI's role in real estate really can and should be. I know you'll bring valuable guidance for title and settlement professionals as they're working right now to figure out how to navigate this evolving landscape. So everybody, don't miss out on Brian's keynote at the NS3 Summit in Pittsburgh this June, where he'll delve deeper into these topics. And you can find more information and register to join us at ns3thesummit.com. Now, for more information on Brian's work, visit his website at keynotespeakerbrian.com. Or you can follow him on LinkedIn, same handle, keynotespeakerbrian.com. And all of those resources I just mentioned are linked in today's show notes. So stay tuned for more episodes of The Keys to Real Estate, where we'll continue to explore the innovations that are shaping our industry. So until next time, for October Research, where knowledge is the competitive advantage, I'm Mary Schuster. Thanks for joining us today.